Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are, whatever time of day you are watching this. Hope you're having a wonderful evening, and welcome to the build-up of Nottingham Forest versus Chelsea FC, which will be kicking off live on Sunday at 4:30 p.m. As always, we will have the watch along for you guys. Hope you guys are doing well, and welcome to a new part of the new channel at FFTV, which is going to be the Showdown, where we bring on rival fans and we're going to be talking to them about the upcoming game. So guys, before we get started, please do not forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you are new. We're like literally 5 away, I think, from 7K. So please do hit that like button. But let's get on the show and let's bring on our Chelsea guest. Charlie, how are you, matey? Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. Looking forward to getting stuck into this one and hopefully being for a decent game. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Anytime, mate, anytime. Just for those Forest fans who, I mean, this is all new and learning for us, mate. Back in the Premier League after 23 years out. Some of them may not have seen your channels before. If you want to give it a quick shout out, and I'll get Omai in the chat just to make sure the link is available. And guys in the chat, please share. Please go and subscribe to Charlie and support what they're doing there. So yeah, Charlie, quick shout out on the channels and what you guys are covering.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, for sure. So obviously I've got my own channel which is called the Blues Brothers. So I just do basically similar to what you guys do, all Chelsea related content, match previews, match reviews, transfer stuff, match day vlogs. All of it's there. So yeah, if you want to go and check out the Blues Brothers and subscribe to my personal channel, that would be great. And I'm also part of the Chelsea Fan TV channel as well. So if you guys want to go and support that channel in any way as well, we do, you know, the usual stuff, fan cams after games, match day vlogs, transfer news, that sort of stuff. So you want to go over to Chelsea Fan TV as well and support that, then please do. But yeah, that's kind of the plug for me. So yeah, Blues Brothers, my personal channel, and then obviously Chelsea Fan TV as well, the bigger one.
Fantastic. And you will be at the big game on Sunday, won't you? Coming up to Forest?
Yes, I'll be there. Looking forward to it. You know, as you said, it's been a while since you guys have been back in the Premier League. I think it's great. You know, Forest traditionally, you know, a great club, and you know, one of those what I'd call like a proper Premier League club. You know, it's good to have them back in there. So I'm looking forward to visiting the City Ground and seeing what it's got to offer and what it's like.
Have you been there before, mate? You're a young-looking chap. I mean, I'm 21, so you may be a year or two older. Have you been?
No, mate, never been. I mean, I've done, to be honest, like I do most of the home games, and then this season, really, I've done a lot of aways. I've been to Newcastle, I've done Brentford, I've done Villa, Palace, Brighton. I've done a few, been up to Leeds as well. So yeah, looking forward to coming to Forest and seeing what the atmosphere is like.
Fantastic. All right, we'll jump into in a second. Guys in the chat, we're going to open up a Q&A, and I hope, Charlie, you don't mind. If you guys want to get some questions into Charlie, we'll pick a few out throughout the duration of the show. Anything you guys want to know about Chelsea, any players you're worried about for Sunday, maybe you want to know about their fitness, or anything Premier League related that's in line with Chelsea, get it in the Q&A. I'll get Omar to put that up in a second. We do have a late straddler here. Oh, God, caught him with the drink in the mouth. You all hydrated up, man?
Yeah, I'm ready. Although I seem to be out of sync.
No, you're fine now. You're fine now. Charlie, I want to start by talking about the road so far with Chelsea, mate. I've always had a little soft spot for Chelsea, not a huge one, I'm not going to lie to you, but I have a real dark spot for Man United. So thank you for all those titles you nicked off them over the years, mate. It was wonderful to watch. But at the moment, I feel like Chelsea are kind of in a bit of a transition stage is coming across. Obviously, you've got Potter coming in and so on. But how do you guys feel? And I've kind of seen a few of your recent videos as well. How do you guys feel about the current form under Potter? And really how it ended with Tuchel as well, looking at the start of the season.
Yeah, so if I take the first part, then obviously we'll go back to Thomas Tuchel being there. Obviously, you know, done a great job for the club, world-class manager. Won us the Champions League. We got to 6 finals under him. Obviously, we lost 3 of those, but he was very much he was a specialist manager, particularly in knockout tournaments. The league form wasn't so great. I mean, I think a lot of Chelsea fans, not all of them, but a lot of Chelsea fans kind of when they talk about Tuchel, they kind of gloss over the fact that actually in the league we weren't that great under him. In the season we won the Champions League, we scraped fourth place ultimately because Spurs beat Leicester on the final day of the season. I know we went on to win it, so it wouldn't have really mattered. But we relied on favours to get fourth that year. Then last season we should have comfortably come fourth, and it went down to the last couple of games because the form was terrible. So the league form under Tuchel hasn't been good. I was very surprised that he was sacked when he was. Obviously, new owners coming in. You always know that new owners are going to perhaps want their own man, but there was no indications, certainly throughout pre-season and that sort of thing, that they were thinking of changing the manager. Obviously, Bowley had spoken very highly of Tuchel and wanting to work together. But I think that the big problem for Tuchel was, ultimately the reason he was sacked was because the visions didn't align for how his vision of the club didn't align with what the owners wanted to do. They weren't pulling in the same direction. So ultimately he went. But for me, the thing that I don't understand is that they would have had ideas pretty early on that they would have wanted to get Tuchel out. So I think it would have made more sense personally for me to if you knew you were going to get rid of him before the transfer windows closed or after the pre-season, and then give Potter a bit of a pre-season and a chance to bring his own players in the summer, because then Potter, who's a good manager, he's done a very good job at Brighton. I like what he's done with his career, but he's just parachuted into an absolute mess at Chelsea and is kind of expected to pick up the pieces. And for him, he's never managed at this level. He's never worked with the quality of players that we've got on offer at the club at the moment. And it's a big ask for him as well. He's learning on the job and he's been parachuted into a mess. So the Tuchel thing was good. He was great for us, but ultimately, it never too surprised that Chelsea, when managers come and go, because over the last 20 years under Roman, managers on a revolving door every 18 months to 2 years. There was a new manager come in. So hopefully Todd Bowley and co, the new owners, are moving away from that and trying to install a long-term project manager for 2, 3, maybe 4, 5, 6 years or whatever, because I think those times are now gone. You can't win a Premier League by swapping the manager every 2 years. So sad for how it ended for Tuchel, but ultimately I think in terms of the long term, this is going to be better for Chelsea. I've never viewed Tuchel as a long-term manager.
Yeah, it's the thing that fascinates, because I've obviously followed Chelsea very closely over the years, and you got used to the idea of the revolving door and the managers coming in, you kind of short-term success, and it was, you could see almost a philosophy in what Abramovich was doing. But I never really saw a public display of what was going on behind the scenes like we did with Tuchel. Yes, there was a bit of it in the Mourinho was it the second era when it happened, but it really kind of became aired to the public. And I don't know if you guys were against that, or in terms of, did you actually quite like seeing it, because it wasn't so kind of secret squirrel and behind the scenes, at least you knew where things stood? Or did you find it too disruptive for the for you guys?
I don't know. I think the major difference for me is that with Roman, who obviously forever thankful for everything that he's done, he essentially saved the club, what he went on to do. We won everything there is to win under him. So forever grateful for that. But I think one of the downsides for Roman, and not necessarily his fault per se, but he was very private, very closed off. You never got much communication from him at all. Obviously, when Lampard was sacked, he put a letter statement sort of thing out, thanking him and whatnot. But otherwise, you hardly ever heard from him. Obviously, we heard from him through the sanctions and the sale of the club and whatnot. But generally speaking, we didn't hear from him very much. And he was very much kind of out of sight, out of mind. You knew that, he'd invest in the club, he'd put money in and stuff. But with day-to-day things, you wouldn't really hear much from him. I don't think it helps that he wasn't allowed in the UK for a number of years towards the end of his tenure at the club. It was nice seeing Todd Bowley at every game. Well, definitely the home games, not the I don't know if he goes to all the away games. So it's nice to have slightly more hands-on owners that are more involved, owners that are kind of happy to talk about what's going on, the direction they want to take the club in, because we didn't really have that under Roman. So whilst it's different, I think ultimately for Chelsea to evolve as a club, we perhaps needed to move on from Roman and to move into a new era, really.
But is he a bit too hands-on? Because there was a lot of talk over the summer about how he was getting very involved in the transfer market. He was almost cutting the deals himself. Some guy, I don't know how true that is, but there was a lot of that paper talk going on in the summer over it. Has he managed to put an infrastructure in under him, or is he still quite hands-on with it?
So yeah, in the summer, obviously Marina Granovskaya, who was like kind of the main Chelsea transfer person, and then Petr Cech was kind of in a technical advisory role. The two of them kind of dealt with the transfers together, and Tuchel sort of reported to them, and Tuchel really liked that structure he was working under. Obviously, when Bowley and Co came in, removed Marina, removed Cech. And that's not a surprise at all, because when new owners come in, they want to put their own people in, they want their own structure in place. And I don't think that sat too well of Tuchel. Obviously, we've got a structure in place now, but particularly last summer, Todd Bowley was essentially acting as a sporting director himself. So he was traveling around all over the place, holding a lot of conversation with agents, clubs, and whatnot, just to kind of introduce himself as well and to get to know people, because people might forget that, he obviously runs a very successful baseball team in the Dodgers, who have done very well, but doesn't know anyone in football. He's totally new to this. So I think I actually rate the fact that he's spent the time to go and travel about, meet all these people, make contacts, do all this stuff. And we have now got a structure in place. I'm not sure. I think he's still doing a little bit of the sporting director stuff, but we've now got a full recruitment structure in place. I mean, we've got obviously Weve in from Leipzig to help with that multi-club model. We've got Lawrence Stewart, a guy from Monaco. We've got Joe Shields, a recruitment guy from Southampton. We've obviously got Carl McCauley, who was Graham Potter's recruitment guy at Brighton. We've got Paul Winstanley from Brighton as well. So the structure's taken place now. We just need to let them do their work. But yeah, one thing for sure with Tuchel was he didn't like all that extra responsibility. He very much wanted to be a coach and just focus on the football stuff, and all that extra responsibility, he didn't like that. And I think certainly for the first part of this season, I think you could tell that extra strain and extra responsibility was taken away from the work that he was doing on the football pitch. Yeah,
it's interesting to see how this is going to evolve. And I think really just touching now on the start of the Potter era, it was interesting, to say the least, the results you guys have had. I think you went on a bit of a loss streak just before the World Cup. I think you beat Villa towards the end of it. Was it Villa? It was Villa.
We lost 4 of our last 5 games before the World Cup. But when Potter first came in, we went on, I think, a 9-game unbeaten run. We didn't win all those games. There were a few draws in there, but we were unbeaten in his first 8, or I think in his first 9 games. And then obviously went to the Amex and got hammered 4-1. And that, so yeah.
Yeah, that must. Were you at the game? I saw your vlog on it, wasn't it?
Went down to the Amex. That was a dark day for us.
How would the Brighton fans towards Potter there in the stadium?
They absolutely hammered him. He was booed, sacked in the morning, chanced a lot. He got absolutely hammered, which I don't really understand. I know football's kind of like tribal, and I'm not sure, it's probably a little bit in jest, but to hold something against Graham Potter, no disrespect to Brighton, but when Chelsea come calling, you're not going to stay at Brighton, are you? I don't know how you can hold that against him. And Cucurella was getting pelters as well. He was getting absolutely hammered. But yeah, it's just part and parcel of it, isn't it?
It is. And interesting point there, just a nice segue into Cucurella. And I want to talk about a few
hang on, before you move on, can I say something?
Go on, mate.
If I'm in sync. I tell you what, I'll put my camera off because I'm out of sync, so I'll put my camera off. I was just going to say,
sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Charlie, that you're a young guy, so you've been brought up with nothing but Chelsea success, yeah. And that model has obviously been high-profile manager, get them in, get all these players in, win something, change. As soon as that starts dropping, that level drops a bit. Get the next high-profile manager in, win something, couple of years, and so on and so forth. So although the board may or may not be like happy enough to give Potter time, which I think I personally think he deserves, because I think he is a good coach. Do you think the fans will be prepared to give him time? Because they're that used to success year after year after year that it might be difficult for them to be patient.
No, it certainly is. I mean, as I say, like I'm lucky to be part of a generation of Chelsea fans where kind of all we've known is winning over the last 20 years. Been the most successful club in Britain, winning everything there is to win. But I think there's a realization now that if we want to win the Premier League, that's the bread and butter. Look, the Champions League's great, the domestic cups, they're great, but you want to win the league. You want to compete over 38 games. That's the big one. And we've been absolutely nowhere for 5-6 years now. We haven't come anywhere near it since we won it under Antonio Conte, I think 17. And we've got nowhere near. And the reason we've got nowhere near is because we're just a revolving door of managers. And there's no surprise when you look at the two top teams now. All right, Liverpool's struggling a bit this season, but you've got Jurgen Klopp, who's been there 7-8 years, and you've got Pep at City, who's been there 5-6 years at least. And they're allowed to bed in their ideas. All the players in the squad are players that they've signed, and there's no that's how you build a Premier League winning team. I honestly think football's changed now, where you cannot bring in a manager every 18 months to 2 years and expect them to come in one season, win the league. I just don't think that happens anymore.
And I think that's the big model. I'm going to turn myself off again. The big model now, of course, is Arteta, who many clubs, including, I'm absolutely certain yours, would have sacked him after 2 8th-place finishes.
Oh yeah,
maybe even if it had dropped out of the top 4 like we did last year, in the last few games. But that's proof. But the thing is, there's this sort of myth I often hear with like, you've got to stick with managers. Managers need to be given more time. I agree with that if it's the right manager. It's not going to stick with the manager if he's not.
No, for sure. But what I would say is that you don't know if the manager's going to be good enough unless you give them the time. So for me, like, look, the results not been great, but there's no point us getting up in arms about it, because Potter's been here 2 minutes. He hasn't had any transfer windows. It's been a World Cup mid-season. He's not had a lot of time to work with the players on the training ground. Games were like we were playing 3 times a week from October all the way up to the World Cup. Obviously 6 weeks off for the World Cup, but a lot of our players at the World Cup, key first team players injured. Yes, sometimes do some stuff on the training pitch, but not with that many players that are going to feature on a regular basis. So whilst I do agree, you don't want to give the wrong manager time. You need to give them a little bit of time to work out whether they're actually the right person for the job or not. I mean, I'm fully back Potter, and ultimately Potter might not work out for Chelsea. There's every chance that could happen, but we have to give him the time to show whether he is right or isn't right, because otherwise we're just going to go in this endless cycle, which is not going to produce any long-term results.
Mind you, we had an endless cycle of revolving managers, but that's because they were all crap. Slightly different, way of doing it.
Was he a popular choice when Tuchel went? Were the fan base behind the idea of Potter coming in? Because there must have been some doubts about, can he make that step up to the elitist level clubs?
I think there's always that level of doubt, because this is a guy in Potter who you only have to watch Brighton play, and he's taken them from a side that's essentially was fighting to stay in the division. They're now a top 8 side, top 8, top 10 side, and they play great football. They've got great players, they've got a great recruitment system, great scouting in place. And you only have to look at the work he's done there to know how good a coach he is if he's given the time. And you think the work that he's done at Brighton on minimal resource compared to the resource available at Chelsea. And Chelsea have probably looked at the Brighton model and thought, right, that model is great. It works well. And is it scalable? And I think we're basically looking to just take Brighton's model essentially and just upscale it so it can work at Chelsea. And I think that can work. And Potter, he's going to need time as well. Yes, he's a very good manager, but this is the first time that Chelsea, certainly since I've been following them, where we've not gone for a big name, or a massive name in football. We've always had we've had Mourinho, Ancelotti, Maurizio Sarri, Tuchel, Lampard, obviously not a big name, but we've always gone with big name managers. So it's something different that a lot of Chelsea fans aren't used to. He's going to need time. I think he can definitely make the step up, but people have to be patient with him, because it takes time to build a football team. He's got to build it in his identity. He's got to get time to get across his ideas. Yes, the results are really important, but in the long term, if we lose a few games, which we will do, and we have done, and we'll continue to lose games this season, we've got to move away from this short-sightedness and look at the bigger picture a bit more. Yes, it's a results-based business, and yes, the results are really important, but if we have to take a few losses, if we have to finish outside the Champions League spaces this season and we play Europa League football next year, but if that benefits us in the long run, then I think that's something we just have to accept. You've got no given right to think we're a top 4 team. You know, the Premier League's getting better and better. There's more and more teams fighting for those top 4 spaces. So to think we've got a right just to finish in the top 4 is unrealistic. So yeah, he has to be given the time. I think he will get things right, but he needs to be given, obviously, this season, next season as well. Obviously, if we were to finish like 10th or something this season, then it might be a bit of a different conversation. But by all accounts, I mean, the board want to keep him on regardless of whether we finish in the top 4 or not.
Yeah, but would the Chelsea fan base accept that? I mean, what is the minimum standard for Chelsea these days? Because a lot of the so-called Big Six finishing outside the top 4 usually will require the axe to drop on a manager. And do you think he will get that free pass if you finish outside the top 6?
Yeah, I think so. I think these owners, well, we'll find out whether these owners are true to their word or not. You know, we paid, 20 million quid to get him out of Brighton, plus an extra 2 million for his staff. It's a 5-year contract, 12 mil a season. This is like over an 80 million pound investment if he's here for the 5 years. So to discard that investment after a season and a half.
You discarded Lukaku after one season. He was 100 million.
But I liked that. I like that cutthroatness. He's not working.
It didn't work out. Yeah,
absolutely.
But again, that goes back to the recruitment under the previous regime. You know, not enough due diligence is done. You know, we need a centre forward. We just look at it. Lukaku will be good for us without taking into mind the character of the player, how he's going to fit into the system and whatnot. So I think a lot more due diligence is going to be done now. And yeah, I don't know. I think he will be given the time. I think he has to be, because it's a little bit embarrassing to write off a manager that way, like such a short way into a process, and then start the exact same process again and hope someone else does it better.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Chelsea for me is that I never know what team they're going to play. They don't seem to have an identity. They seem to be changing all the time. It's really strange. You know, the top teams, you know pretty much their formation and their personnel. With Chelsea, I never feel that.
Yeah, we're still working that out. And I think that's been a big problem this season. I don't think we know what our best team is.
Join the club.
We don't know what our best 11 is. You know, you can speak to 6, 7. No, I can speak to 10 Chelsea fans, and you know, we probably come up with 3 or 4 different lineups of what people think the best team is. I know you're gonna make rotations for certain games. You're not going to play the same 11 every game. But you look at United, you look at City, you look at Liverpool, you look at Arsenal. You pretty much know what their best. You know what their best team is, what their best 11 is. You know what the identity is at these football clubs. You know what they're trying to do, and that's where we're trying to get to. You know, we look at Chelsea right now. Don't know what our best team is. Don't really know what our identity is. Don't really know what our style of play is. And these are all things that we have to find, we have to build, and we have to, you know, work out what we are as a team. Because under Thomas Tuchel, we were hard to beat, didn't let many goals in, tough to break down. You get the odd goal here or there, and that would be enough to win a game. Right now, they're kind of just, I don't really know where we're at. We're just picking up results as and when we can. There's not really a clear identity. But I think these are things that will come.
As I mentioned, that we're obviously in a similar situation, having to try and blend players together, not knowing from one week to the next what formation and what team are going to play. But you've got a better standard of players, so you can still get the result. That's the difference.
Grind it out.
Yeah, I mean, you say
although you had lost your previous fall before the World Cup, having said that.
We've lost a lot of games this season. And I was at Bournemouth game on Tuesday, and whilst we did play better, there were still opportunities for Bournemouth, and a better team would have. We would have been in trouble. So I think right now, I think the important thing for Chelsea is that this will come. We will improve. We will establish an identity. But right now, the game's coming so quickly. It's just about getting the points on the board, regardless of the performances. And hopefully, you know, in the pre-season, over the summer in pre-season, next season we'll start to see more of an identity taking shape and have more of an idea of what Potter's looking to do once he's kind of had windows to bring his own players in, and then we can kind of establish what our identity might be and what our best 11 is going to be going forward. But right now, it's just about put what you think the best team on the pitch is, and just try and get as many points as you can.
Yeah, I want to bring in a couple of the questions from the guys in the chat, and ask him what you want, guys. Charlie can take it, the banter questions, the normal questions, and what have you. So, first question we got for you, Charlie, is from Simon. He says, "Why does your club waste so much money?"
But I'd love to know. Like, hopefully, that's not going to be the case now. But yeah, we have. You look at it over the years, we've spent a phenomenal amount of money. And most of the big money signings have not worked at all. Lukaku didn't work at all. Complete, that was an absolute disaster. Kai Havertz, jury's still out on him. Yes, he's still here, but he's not delivered on what we. I mean, he hasn't given us what we would have expected from him in his third season for the money we spent. Obviously, Timo Werner's come and gone. That didn't work out. We spent big money on Christian Pulisic. Hasn't really worked out either. There's a lot of players where it just hasn't worked out. I just think it goes back
but they're not bad players, are they? So is it the system they're being put into?
I just think it's perhaps that, we've not done the due diligence and scouted the players properly or, looked into how they're going to fit into the system. I think what Chelsea have done is rather than looking at, right, how's this player going to fit into the system? How's this player's attitude going to work at the club? Are they going to be good for the dressing room and whatnot? We've just looked at it and thought, right, good player. Let's just try and make it work rather than actually thinking, is this going to work or not? So, the recruitment's been a disaster over the years. I mean, our best players have been we signed Aspilicueta for 7 million, I think 10 odd years ago. Gary Cahill, we got him in 1 January. I know the market's a bit different now, so 7 million back then. It's probably more like 12, 14 million now, but
it's not a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money. I just think it goes down to, I don't know, just I think just the scouting and just doing your research properly. I think it's just as simple as that. Because
I personally find it staggering that these football clubs, including my own, spend all these millions of pounds on players that as soon as they get there, every fan can tell, no, that's not the right fit. And yet these clubs just go out and
but then they have to stick with it, don't they? Yeah, to try and prove it. I mean, I want to run through a couple of your signings this season. I'm going to be honest with you on what I think of them. And then I'd like your opinion, obviously, on it. Aubameyang, I didn't get that one. I know you need a striker because it's clear you're playing Havertz as almost a false 9, aren't you? I don't really see Havertz as a striker. I think he's more of a cam, but he kind of pops around all over the place in the front line. But Aubameyang, that hasn't really worked out for you guys. Is he injured currently, or is
he just doesn't really? He doesn't tend to get in a team that much. The Aubameyang one was a really odd one. I mean, that was very much heavily influenced by Tuchel. You got Aubameyang on deadline day. We played away at Zagreb in the Champions League, lost that game. That was Aubameyang's first game for the club. And then the very next morning, Tuchel was out the door. So, the board would have known. I mean, I've loved literally pretty much everything that the board have done since they've come in, the new owners. I think it's been fantastic. It's been a breath of fresh air. The one thing that I didn't understand at all was why sanction Aubameyang on deadline day, which is clearly a Tuchel signing, when you know you're sacking the manager. That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Look, Aubameyang's been a good player. He's scored a lot of goals over his career, but at 33 years of age now, he's not the same as he was a few years ago, obviously.
And the Arsenal connection as well. Surely
I don't mind so much about that. We've had players come from Arsenal before and do phenomenally well. Ashley Cole, Giroud. So it's that doesn't bother me too much. Once someone's wearing a Chelsea shirt, I'll fully back them until they're gone. But the Aubameyang one, I didn't get that at all. It's been a waste of money.
I don't care where players have played to pull your own shirt on.
Yeah.
And then just looking at a couple of these other ones.
Hang on. But they did pay an awful lot of money for a player that I've watched over the last 18 months at Arsenal be very poor. So it's a strange decision. Although Tuchel obviously felt that being his man, he could get something out of him.
Yeah,
and then he left.
He does. Look, if you give him the chances, like his finishing is still pretty good, but it's just everything else that goes with it now. If he's not, I know it sounds a bit stupid, but if he's not scoring, he's offering nothing to the team. There's no link up play. I mean, we didn't buy him for link up play, but ultimately, when we don't create that many chances, he's just like a passenger. And he hasn't been playing for the middle recently. He's been playing wide when he's been playing, which I found a bit odd as well. So yeah, at the moment, he could score a load of goals for us in the second half of the season, but I think that's unlikely. So yeah, I think that for me is not a good signing at all.
Yeah, it just you know what it reminded me of a bit of the Torres signing when you guys got Torres. And it kind of feels a similar circumstance to it, a player that's maybe peaked and is crashing down. And it felt a bit like that. So Birmingham, although I liked him in his Arsenal fan, my boy's an Arsenal fan, sorry. Yeah. But he's, you could tell he was on the decline of it. One person I do like that I want to ask you about, but I don't know if you haven't played him much because of injury or he's just not been fancied, is Dennis Zachariah. I think he's a cracking player, but he hasn't featured too much in the Chelsea team. I know he's on loan, isn't it, from Juve with you guys, but he's a hell of a unit. And he played against Bournemouth the other day, and I thought he was all right.
Yeah, he was good against Bournemouth. He obviously came in on deadline day as well. I'll say a panic signing. We needed a midfield player desperately. I don't know why we waited so long. But yeah, we got him in on loan. It took ages for him to feature. Literally came in on deadline day, and then he didn't play until the last game of the Champions League group stage, where he scored on his debut and was pretty decent. We then saw him in the Cup away at City, where again he played pretty well. Didn't feature much for Switzerland in the World Cup. I think he played 56, 57 minutes of football in their campaign. And he started against Bournemouth surprisingly the other night, and he was good. So I think that, I think he's a good player. I mean, there's an option to buy. I don't think we're going to buy him, but he can certainly be useful for us this season. He offers a profile in the midfield that we don't really have at the moment. Someone that's physical, is kind of a box-to-box player, can play that holding role as well. So, I'd probably expect him to start on Sunday, and he definitely deserves more opportunities in the side.
Yeah, I want to pick up on two players, then I want to start talking about the game on Sunday between us, because I think that's what the guys in the chat want to get into. But for me, I feel you've been ripped off on a couple of players, mate. I'm being straight with you, yeah? Cucurella, good player, 50-odd million.
Massively he'll be overpaid for him. We paid above market value for him. I think it was clear that obviously City were in for the player. They didn't want to pay any more than £49 million. They viewed that as what he's worth. So yeah, we've overpaid. It'll be, well, obviously if the add-ons get hit, I don't know how attainable those bonuses and those add-ons are. It would be 63 million all in if that's the case. But it's important to also remember that, with transfer fees and stuff, you see 50 odd million. It doesn't mean that 50 odd million is paid all in one go. So I think
it's the add-ons.
It's not all paid in one go. So it depends again how the payment's structured, because that could be 10 million spread over 5 years. I'm not saying it is, but as an example, you could be paying for Cucurella for 5 years or whatever it is. So yes, I agree. We overpaid for him. We paid a premium, but we were kind of desperate. So in those situations, you either don't pay the money. You try and
Chilwell, but what I never understood about that, mate. So sorry to interrupt. I quite rate Chilwell, and I think Chilwell is a really good left wing back at the moment. And that's the thing that I haven't understood about Chelsea is I just feel sometimes you're stockpiling players and say, I know it's good to have the strength and depth, but Chilwell I thought was really good last season until he had his injury. And it's kind of the same with some of your wingers, like Ziyech. Okay, he hasn't had the cleanest run. Pulisic, you've got as well on the wing, and then you go and buy Sterling on top of that. When it just felt for me that over the summer, the time you were looking at Sterling, you were crying out for a number 9. I was surprised he didn't get Ronaldo. I'll be honest. I know he has his baggage and everything, but it almost feels like he would have slotted in there. I just was wondering. The last one I want to talk about is Sterling. I never have fully rated Sterling. I think his finishing is quite weak. He's really good at dribbling and everything like that. Yeah. It's just you always feel that he needs 4 or 5 attempts, and it's just like put some power in your shot, mate. But were you guys happy about the Sterling signing, and how have you felt he's been at the start of the season?
I think he's been underwhelming. He's been disappointing considering all that he's done in his career. He's done very well for Manchester City. Scored over 100 goals. So he's a multiple Premier League winner. He's won everything there is to win domestically. He's a big part of the England team, particularly in that run to the final at the Euros. But at the same time, it would be naive for Chelsea fans to think we were going to get the same Sterling that was at Manchester City. Sterling at City playing with Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Mahrez, all these great players. You know, City creates so many more chances than we do. So in a game where, you know, City win most weeks, they'll probably score 3 or 4 goals. If you're Sterling and you miss 2 chances in the game, but your team wins, no one talks about those 2 missed chances.
Yeah.
No one notices it. But at Chelsea, where we create far less chances, we don't score anywhere near as many goals. Missing a couple of chances is a difference between winning and losing that game, and it gets highlighted much more. So I think playing for Chelsea, his deficiencies are far more exposed than they are at City, because we don't create as many chances. And as I said, a couple of missed chances a game at Chelsea, and that's the difference between picking up points and dropping points. So whilst he started pretty well under Tuchel kind of first 3 games of the season, it's not been great since then. But look, I do like Sterling. I think he's got good qualities, but it's about utilising him in the right way now and hoping that he can find some form for us, because it's been underwhelming, to say the least.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the meat of it, mate. Let's get into the meat of it, right? It's us versus you at the City Ground this Sunday. When I was doing the build up to the Man U game, Forest Man U, there wasn't a Man U fan that I spoke to that wasn't certain of a win. They were so confident about it, Forest away form and what have you, which pissed me off a lot. I'm not going to lie to you. I was giving it the big I am on that one. But at the City Ground, we're a different animal. And I'm interested how you think the team is, as in Chelsea, are going to play against Forest. Do you think this is a banker for you guys, or are you a little worried about it? And be straight with us. You know, we don't need to be patted on the head. We know where we stand at the moment. But are you more confident or less confident about this game coming up, given your form, but then your win obviously against Bournemouth last week, where the performance was a little better, but not a Chelsea you'd expect?
We can't be confident going into
give us some score
games. Can't be
Seriously.
confident going into any games right now. No, because of how we've been playing. You know, we haven't won that many games. You know, yes, it was good to get a win on Tuesday night against Bournemouth, but ultimately, you know, we've been losing games to teams like Forest of a similar sort of quality. You know, we have been losing those games. You know, you only have to look at, you know, we go to Brighton, we get hammered at Leeds. We lost to Southampton earlier in the season. The away form has not been great this season, and this will be a tough game. You know, Forest be up for it, as you say, better at home, beating Liverpool at home this season. You know, it's going to be New Year's Day. It's probably sell out, I'd imagine. Atmosphere will be great, and the players will be bang up for it. So look, I would expect Chelsea to probably win, but I've got no kind of confidence to suggest that, we should just go into this game and expect to get 3 points and it will be nice and easy. It certainly won't be. I expect Forest to come out, have a go, cause us problems, and it's just going to be how we deal with that. I think we'll probably stick with the back 4 just because of the personnel that we've got available at the moment and who's
injured. Out for you now, mate? Because Reece James is definitely out. I'm not going to lie to you. I was smiling when I saw him go down. I mean, no ill will to him or anything.
No, of course,
But he's your best player in my opinion.
He's best player by miles. Yeah, that's the problem. Like we with all the money we've spent, our best player is a right back. I mean, admittedly very good, probably the best in the world in his position, or definitely in the top 2 or 3. We're so reliant on him. You could even see when he went off against Bournemouth, the difference between when he was on to when he was off was night and day. And you know, in the games that he missed in the build up to the World Cup, we won one of those games. We won one of those 8 or 9 games that he didn't play before the World Cup. We beat Villa at Villa Park 2-0. And we didn't really deserve that either. It wasn't particularly convincing.
He's a similar injury, wasn't it?
Same injury.
Was he risked too early? Was he fully fit to come back?
This is the thing though. Like it's happened to us a number of times now. Obviously, Broja's ACL in that friendly against Villa out in Abu Dhabi whilst the World Cup was on. That's unfortunate. There's not really much you can do about that. But when I look at Fofana, who's been out with a knee injury as well, he played against Brentford behind closed doors game at the training ground at Cobham, and he suffered a reoccurrence of a setback to the. In his rehab, a reoccurrence of the knee injury that kept him out. It's kept him out for a while. So hopefully he'll be back next month at some point. But it's happened to Reece James again as well. And it kind of makes you think, at what point does this not stop? Is this not bad luck anymore? It starts becoming a bit of a worrying pattern, because in the last 4 games, you've had a player injured in each of those games. So I don't know. Look, when you ask a player, they're always going to say they want to play. And
Yeah,
I get it. I get it from both points of view. I get it, and I look at it and I think, right, Potter's under pressure. We need results big time. And yes, you think against Bournemouth, you could get away of not playing Reece James. But with how we've been playing and where we're sat in the table, we were 9th before kicking off against Bournemouth. We weren't really in a position to be taking a risk of not starting Reece James. So I understand why he went for it because of the position that we're in. But equally, I think when you're looking to bet a player back in, you don't want to chuck them straight back into the lineup. You want to give them, 20 minutes from the bench here or there, then maybe 30, 40 minutes in the next game, maybe start the third game, play an hour, and then fourth game, you're kind of ready to go. But I appreciate we don't have that luxury. So it's disappointing. And for me, I'm obviously no medical expert, but if your first game back and you've suffered a reoccurrence of the same injury, it would suggest to me that not everything was 100% healed properly,
agreed.
Which means that someone's made a poor decision along the way, whether it's medical staff, whether it's the player saying that he wants to, I don't know what the line of communication is, but the injuries are taking its toll. And particularly when it's to your best players, it causes you big problems.
I just want to raise this question from Ez. It says, are Chelsea fans angry about the injuries and are the club providing updates on the injuries? Because we got a real frustration at Forest where we've had Niakate, for example, came in, got injured. We were told it was a hamstring, 6 to 8 weeks, the usual length. We haven't seen him since the West Ham game back in August, and no one's really giving us anything inside from the club. There's a few other long-term injuries. We signed Omar Richards with a bloody stress fracture before he'd even done his medical. He's still out. There's loads of these like secret squirrel kind of things with us where we're not really sure where our players are. Do you... I'd be interested from another team's perspective. Do you guys feel like you get enough updates on these injuries? You kept up to speed on what's going on?
Yes, reasonably. But one example, which is probably quite similar to you guys, is Kante obviously injured in the second game against Spurs. That was supposedly Thomas Tuchel back then said, "Oh, he'll be out for a couple of weeks." We haven't seen him since August, and it's now basically January, and he's not expected back until March. So,
and he's a huge loss.
Yeah, sometimes it does feel a little bit in the dark. I mean, Chelsea put a statement out on the website about the Reece James injury, and it was about 2 paragraphs. It didn't really go into any details. It just said he'd be out for up to a month, which probably is more like 5 or 6 weeks, considering what to get back to playing. So you don't really get too much of an update. I mean, it never really says what the actual injury is. It'll just say, oh, it's a hamstring or whatever it is. So it can be quite.
But they put it on the website and you get little updates there. So it's on the website at least, and there's some form of communication, which is interesting to see. Okay, so I just wanted to know that because we've been debating it from our end a lot. Coming back to the game then. And do you want to ask about the game itself? Is there anything in particular that's catching your eye about this match and where the matchups potentially could be?
I don't know. I just think, I think it's really the first time we've played each other in a while. And I could be wrong. We might have met in the cup.
We have a few times in the cup,
But certainly in the Premier League, it's been a while. I'm looking forward to the game. I think there's going to be some good battles in there. Forest I've got some dangerous players. They're better than perhaps the position in the table suggests. Obviously, the away form has been a massive, massive problem this season, which is kind of why you guys are where you're at in the table. But no, I mean, I don't think there's any particular aspects. I think it should just be
Is there a player? Just sorry, mate, but someone's asking a good question here. Is there any Forest players you're particularly worried about?
I guess, I don't know how Lingard got injured the other night, didn't he?
Yeah, he's 50-50 at best.
I would have said Lingard is one of those players that can kind of make something happen out of nothing. As frustrating as he can be, there is some ability there, although you don't often see it on a regular basis. Is the lad you signed from Watford, is he playing? Emmanuel Dennis up front, does he play much?
He's just not been given a run in the team. He's not a first choice in Cooper's eyes. And he gets sporadic games. Every 4th game he'll start. He'll appear as a sub usually for the last 10 minutes, sometimes the last 2 minutes. But it's interesting these names you're picking out.
I think he's a good player, Dennis. I like what I saw from him at Watford. Scored a decent amount of goals. Forest spent about 20 million quid on him. I think I'm surprised he doesn't pay more, considering there's not an abundance of goals in the Forest side. You'd expect him to perhaps feature a little bit more. But yeah, him, Lingard obviously perhaps won't play. I think Dean Henderson in goal is pretty decent. But yeah, there's a few threats, and definitely more than enough to potentially get a win for sure.
Yeah. And who are you most scared of in the Chelsea team?
I'm going to switch it off again. We know it's really difficult match because Chelsea have got so many injuries. We've got so many injuries. It's really difficult to know exactly which team's going to be playing on either side. So it's difficult to pick out particular matchups or dangers or anything like that because we don't know if they're playing. I mean, Chelsea have got a lot of... I saw their team the other day when they were playing Bournemouth. And to say that they've had a bad season, they've lost 4 games on the trot prior to that, etc., etc. I looked at those players, I thought, bloody hell. They've got a lot of good players. So it's not like anybody in particular. I don't know. Nobody in particular worries me. Of the ones that I think may be available. If Reece James had been available, I would have definitely have said Reece James. Sterling's not shining. Havertz has his problems. The defense changes every other match. I don't even know who'll be playing for them, to be honest. I don't know if Charlie can.
Well, Charlie, could you give us a rough idea? I know you got a lot of injuries, but if you were putting an 11 out, just roughly speaking, would it be in that you said it would be not in the 3 or play in the back 4?
I'd say a 4, yeah.
It
would be. I don't think the team will be that different from the team that we put out against Bournemouth. I think Kovacic and Ziyech are back available for selection after the World Cup. I'd expect roughly, I'd say Kepa will play in goal, obviously. It'll be Aspilicueta right
What's happened there? Sorry, what's happened with Mendy? Because Mendy was hot property last season. And Kepa, I remember after the penalty shootout, everyone's thoughts turned on him. Is Kepa now your number 1?
Yeah, Kepa's number 1. He's played all the games under Potter. Obviously, he got picked up a foot problem at Brighton and got subbed off at half time, so missed the last few games before the World Cup. But since the World Cup's come back, he's back as a number 1 choice, and he's playing a lot better than Mendy. I think Potter likes him in terms of the fact that he likes his goalkeepers to be good with the ball at their feet. Distribution's much better than Mendy as well. So yeah, he's the number 1 at the moment. Whether he's the long-term number 1 is a different question. But Mendy has got a slight injury at the moment. But yeah, he when he's fit and available, he's not the number 1 choice right now because his form has just kind of just gone off a cliff. Really, it's quite surprising.
Yeah, I was about to say Mendy went this real hot streak, didn't he? Where people were talking about him being the best goalkeeper in the world, then all of a sudden his form fell off a cliff. And Kepa is a good goalkeeper. You know what I mean? People forget he had a disaster at Chelsea. We all know about it, but he is a good goalkeeper. And I would, if it was me, I would be happy with Kepa over Mendy. That's my.
For sure. Yeah, I am as well. I think Kepa fully deserves to be in there. He's played really well for us this season. He's got over his difficulties that he's had, and right now he's not really put a foot wrong for us this season when he's had to play for us. So yeah, he is definitely the number 1 for sure at the moment. And whether we look to address the goalkeeping situation in the summer is a different conversation. But certainly for the rest of this season, he is definitely the number 1 goalkeeper.
I think you should just go out and buy another goalie. Why not?
Well,
we probably will, to be fair, but it depends who's available.
Let's go into the defense. I personally, although I have a lot of respect for Silva, Koulibaly for me looked dodgy a lot of this season, and I look at that centre pairing back. I assume that'll be the back 2. That was the 2 that played against.
That was the 2 that played against Bournemouth. He could potentially bring Chalobah in, maybe, but I would expect it to continue as Silva and Koulibaly.
Yeah, you're not worried about the pace at the back. I know Silva is a real smart footballing brain on him, but the age he's at, Koulibaly, he's getting on a bit as well. He still hasn't, for me, settled down completely in the Premier League. And I feel that if Forest are brave in attack, they should be looking at putting our pace, because we got a lot of pace up front when we get into the opponent's half, or if you get into the opponent's half. But do you worry about the lack of pace between those two? Do you feel it's caught you out at all this season?
Not necessarily. I think you look at like look at someone like Thiago Silva, who's never really been blessed with pace in his career. These players make up for it with the way that they read the game. John Terry was another example for us where he wasn't blessed with the best of pace, but because he read the game so well, he very rarely got caught out. And Silva's of a similar mold as well, where he rarely gets caught out because of how well he reads the game. So his reading of the game and his decision making makes up for that lack of pace. Obviously, if he's ever got exposed in a foot race, then it could be a slightly problematic. But in terms
how deep do you play, mate? Do you play a high line with those two, or do you tend to sit quite deep?
Massively. It does. It doesn't. It's not like, we don't play like a Liverpool style high line or anything like that. Yeah. But we're not. But at the same time, we're not camped on the edge of our 6-yard box either. So it's kind of just, I think, just a normal line, really. We don't sit particularly deep, and we don't push massively high up either, in case we do get caught out in behind. So yeah, look, the lack of pace, all right, it would be ideal to maybe have a little bit more pace, but I think they make up for it with how they read the game. And on Koulibaly, I think, it's been tricky. It's been a tricky start for him. I thought, he's had some good games as games where he's looked a bit shaky, and I think, despite how well he's played for Napoli in Serie A is totally different to the Premier League. So even for him, a player of his experience and his quality, it does take time to adjust. So yeah, I think it would be wrong not to expect a few kind of shaky moments and for him to not look completely comfortable. I mean, he's only been here for 6 months, so he hopefully will only get better. But yeah, I would agree. It's been a little bit of a tricky start for him, but he has shown, he's not played badly in all the games. There's been a few moments where it's not been great, but I think he'll grow into the league and he will get better. But yeah, I would agree, it's not been
and I assume Aspie will come in at right back to fill in for, would I be right in that assumption? He's a good player, but he's getting on a bit, so I'm quite happy with that back four. Well, do you think Cucurella starts? Is Chilwell back, or is he still?
No, Chilwell's still injured. Chilwell won't be back till probably, maybe middle of this month, probably February.
Yeah, so
it's quite long.
For a couple of weeks before he gets injured again. He's always injured.
Sick note, yeah. I kind of like if we could get into your defense, I feel like with the pace, if we get behind them, if you start to play a higher line, I do feel there's opportunities with our pace to get in behind them. The question is, can we get the ball enough?
Wolfie, we've got no forwards.
And mate, you are just lagging all over the place.
Who's going to play? Who's going to play up front for you guys then on Sunday?
Well, that's a hell of a question, mate. It's with us. It's a frustration for most of the fan base at the moment that we are playing with a false nine, and we're not using a striker. We got one main striker in Owoni, who in the last 2 games, one friendly and one against Man U, Cooper put him out on the left wing, which has baffled the fan base completely. He's not a left winger.
Yeah.
He can finish with his shins usually, but he's just a number 9. So we're seeing some weird things happening in terms of the tactics that are being deployed for us. What Cooper likes to do is go with Brennan Johnson on the right, a 4-3-3, Jono on the right, and then he plays Morgan Gibbs-White as a false 9 or Jesse Lingard, and then Lingard on the left or Morgan Gibbs-White. We don't really like it. We want to see a focal point in the likes of Owoni. We understand he has his shortcomings. But I personally feel that Cooper's trying to shoehorn those 3 players in Jono, in MGW, and in Lingard. And it's just causing a bit of imbalance. It did work against Palace. We saw it work against Spurs in the Cup as well. But Morgan Gibbs-White is injured. Jesse Lingard is a doubt. So he may be forced into playing Owoni in the number 9. So we may actually just stumble upon having a number 9 again, which will be quite useful. But they've all got pace. They've all got a lot of pace.
What have you made of Gibbs-White? Because you spent a lot of money on him from Wolves, probably overpaid. I guess there's a bit of English tax on there as well. A decent-ish player. I mean, what have you made of his impact at Forest? Are the fans pleased with how he's done, or is he not?
We're
really
all happy. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of happiness with him coming in because we saw him a lot in the Championship while we were there. Sheffield United last season. For me, he was the player I never wanted to see on their team sheet last season. He scored so many goals against us, and he was always dangerous on the ball. His impact has been growing, especially towards just before the close, the World Cup break. He was really getting into his groove. He'd got his first goal against Brentford. He got another one. Who was the offside one against, Dan? Was it Palace? It was Palace, wasn't it? He'd scored against them, and he was becoming more and more influential amongst the team. The World Cup break hit us at a wrong time. We were just starting to see a few patterns developing. In terms of his price tag, we get bantered about it all the time. But we only paid really 25 mil for him, plus like 100 mil in add-ons as well. So it was, for what my argument always is, if we're going to end up paying 45 mil for him, we've had a hell of a season. Because there are those kind of add-ons that will tie into his goals and things. So I'd be happy for the price tag to go up that high. But he's been one of my favorite players. The problem we've got now is we've signed Scarpa, the Brazilian who's come there. Yeah. And he's coming across as Brazilian Player of the Year from Palmeiras. They absolutely love him. I get inundated with messages from Palmeiras fans about how they miss him, how he's going to be amazing in the Premier. He can play anywhere across the line. So either right wing cam or left wing. He played against Palmeiras, but he played at left back. I think they were low.
In the Club World Cup.
Yeah. And apparently he had a great game at left back as well. He can't play against you, which has pissed me off, man.
He's not registered in time.
Yeah, he can't get registered because it's the 1st and it has to be registered by the Friday at 12, I think, for that weekend of fixtures. So you're lucky. You've just missed out on the greatest player in the Premier League coming in. So he won't be playing. So we have a little injury crisis in terms of who can and who can't play. But it's a tough one, mate. Because I look at your midfield, I see Jorginho in there. Mount, I'm not fully sold on Mount yet. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting, mate. But that's where we are.
Just on Lingard as well, what have your thoughts been on him? Because when he did sign, obviously, 1-year deal, a lot of money for Forest to pay for him is very much kind of like, well, I'll sign for a year, and if you go down, I'm off sort of thing. I mean, how have the fans taken to him?
Initially, the fan base was really happy to see him. It was a big name signing. It put Forest on the map in terms of everyone was talking about Forest. We put 2 fingers up at West Ham about it because he chose us over them. I've not been that impressed with him, me personally. He has had a couple of good games, again, just before the World Cup break against Palace and against Spurs in the Cup where he got his first goals. I've never been sold on him as a player in his time at Man U. I've seen a lot of him there. He had that cameo against West Ham where he was looking really hot on his loan spell. But for me, I still think he's a little lazy and he should be leading the team a lot more. I think as a person who's come into a team that is lacking in Premier League experience, I would have expected him to really have taken it by the scruff of the neck, leading the lines and things like that. I have him at fault for some huge mistakes during the season. But the Forest fan base are the most loving fan base when it comes to players, and they will overlook a lot of these shortcomings and kind of think he just needs a bit more time. He just needs a bit more time. But if I'm more straight about it, I think Morgan Gibbs-White is better than him. I think Scarpa is going to be better than him. I think there are better players in him. And I think he causes an imbalance because I feel Cooper's trying to shoehorn him in. But you will find a lot of the Forest fan base disagree with me on that. So yeah, that's Lingard for you. But it's just, it still hasn't got that balance. We haven't got that balance up front. We got great midfielders. Midfield, when it comes to midfield, we're very stocked with midfielder. We've got, one of our own, Ryan Yates, who's really starting to step up in the Premier League. He's a real battler. You guys will struggle against him if it gets physical on the weekend. He has his shortcomings. He's not the greatest of passers, but when it comes to the crowd in front of the City ground, he always gives 100%. He's always it'll come off against Brighton. He came off with this big ass black eye and everything and really puts it all out there. We got Freuler, who is keeping Dennis Zachariah out of the Swiss team in the World Cup. But he's been played in the wrong position. He's being played too deep, where in my opinion, and a lot of fans would agree with me on this, he should be higher up the pitch where he can influence it. And we've got players coming back, the likes of Mangala, who was a Belgium international. He's come back from an injury, and he's looking pretty good. He didn't have his greatest game against Man U, but he's one that I've got high hopes for as well. So when it comes to the midfield, it's about finding the right balance of which players go in there. And I think Cooper's still, I think what you're going to see is Yates, Mangala and Freuler as the midfield three against you on Sunday. So it will be a bit physical. I don't know how your boys are up for a physical challenge or not, or do they prefer kind of a bit of space to work with?
I'd probably prefer a bit of space to work. I think everyone would be, but I mean, it'll be interesting to see whether Kovacic comes straight back into that midfield. That would be a massive plus for us. Obviously, Jorginho does what he does. He dictates play from that holding midfield position.
Yeah.
Zachariah's physicality could be a plus if the Forest midfield is quite physical. So maybe he will start again just to kind of combat that, add a little bit more physicalness in there. And then alongside perhaps Mason Mount in one of those kind of number 8 positions, just to kind of complement Mount's perhaps more guile and more attacking impetus, perhaps not the biggest physical presence or defensive qualities in his game. So that could, Zachariah alongside him could kind of contrast that quite nicely. So yeah, I think the midfield battle, like in a lot of football games, is always going to be key.
Yeah. And are you back with us, mate? No, he's looking pretty grumpy. I think I want to move on to talk about.
God, I may as well drop off the stream because I'm
in and out. Yeah, we'll catch up, man. We'll catch up. Apologies, Charlie. It's
right.
He's having net issues. Yeah, I want to move on to talk about the scoreline, mate. Let's be straight here. Yeah, it's you need 3 points. We desperately need 3 points, guys in the chat. Let's start talking score lines as well. If I had a gun to your head now, Charlie, and I had to make you make a call on the scoreline, what way are you going?
I'll probably say 2-1 Chelsea, but I mean that would be. I don't really predict us to lose that often. Even if I think we're going to lose games, I'll still kind of find some sort of faith that we won't. I think a 2-1 to Chelsea. I wouldn't be surprised if we went down a goal potentially, but yeah, I think we could. I think we'll win 2-1. But again, it's so hard to predict. This is kind of where we're at the moment. Is that you go into games that you like this, where you think this is like winnable, like should be a dead cert for Chelsea almost in years gone by, and where we're at now, it's I'm kind of thinking, well, I don't know if we are actually going to win this game. That's the thing. I'd go
with a bit of confidence, mate. I mean, I'm coming off the back of the Man U bloody plastic fans. You know, it's good to see a fan base that is just as worried about results as we are. But yeah, you think it's going to be that tight?
Yeah, I think it will be. I don't expect a demolition or anything like that. I don't expect it to be like a 3 or 4-0 game or anything along those lines. We don't tend to have those particularly often. So, but again, you know, I don't know. We could easily go here. I mean, I've been to away games this season where we just got hammered. We went up to Leeds at the start of the season, got battered 3-0. Got played off the park at Newcastle. Obviously, a very good side, Newcastle. We got played off the park there. And they got hammered by Brighton, as I said. So, you know, we've struggled on the road this season as well. So, yeah, this will be a difficult game. I think 2-1 for us, but I equally wouldn't be surprised if we did end up falling short or if it was a draw.
You've made me feel a bit more confident. I think Forest. I always say Forest are going to win. I don't know. When we went up to Man City, I predicted 5-2. So you know you can take you put that in mind when you hear my result. I kind of fancy Forest to win this 2-0. I'm not giving you a goal, mate. I just
well, we might. To be fair, we might not. We don't score that many. I mean, I wouldn't rule that out. We will have to see. But I think one thing's for sure. I think it will be a close game.
Yeah, I think the midfield is going to be the key to this game, as it is, as you mentioned, in most games we see. I know Simon's looking a little shocked in the chat with my 2-0. It's less than the 5-2 I predicted against Man City, which I was completely off with. But I just think whoever wins that midfield battle, are your guys going to be up for a scrap? Are they going to? Obviously, they can deal with atmospheres, but it's really intense at the City ground. It's always loud. It doesn't matter what the scoreline is, and you're going, aren't you?
I'll be there. Looking forward to it, mate. Looking forward to heading into the ground. Hope is the away end decent, by the way?
Yeah, it's in the
pretty
Bridgeford
good.
end. It's quite nice and closed. You'll have a few Forest fans around you giving you some abuse, no doubt, as well. It's just such. I mean, I'm biased, but there's no greater place for me to go than the City ground. I've gone to a lot of the big grounds. I was at the game at the Etihad for Man City.
Nice.
I went down to the Arsenal match as well. And the atmosphere just feels more enclosed at Forest. It just feels more passionate as well. Now I'm probably pissing off all the Man City and Arsenal fans, but so be it. But it is just like it's almost like a togetherness across the stadium. You know, you can feel, and sometimes it works against us when the tense matches. I'm thinking back to the playoff matches now, but in those matches, the crowd really got behind the guys. We nearly threw it all away, and it was the crowd that carried us over. And in certain aspects this season, I feel like it's the crowd that have been motivating the team to perform. And that's why you see this yin and yang with us between our home form and our away form as well. Our stats is crazy. If you look at our goal difference on the road, it's -21. If you're looking
have you won on the road this season?
No, thank you for reminding me.
Oh,
we should have beat Everton, mate. We should have beat Everton.
Won all there, didn't you?
Yeah, but our defense messed up in the 87th minute. And we let that one slip. But yeah, on the road, we're -21 on goal difference. At home, we're -1. That's the complete contrast.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's going to be a tight game. Are the guys all right to come up to you? I know there'll be loads of the guys in the chat. If they see you at the City ground on Sunday, you want to come up to you and say hi?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem at all.
Fantastic. Okay. I think we'll wrap it up there, matey. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here.
No problem at all.
Quick reminder to the guys in the chat, please show some love to Charlie. Go and subscribe to both his channels. They're both pinned in the title and in the description. And Omai's going to put them in the chat for you guys now as well. Any closing words from you, Charlie, before we wrap the stream up?
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Great show. Good fun. And just looking forward to the game on Sunday. Looking forward to coming up to Forest, coming to the City ground, and seeing what it's all about, and hopefully taking home a win. But that'll be a bonus for us. That'll be the dream.
You're dreaming, mate. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. We are 2 subscribers away from 7K. So if you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button and go and show some love to Charlie. I'll be on Charlie's channel tomorrow. We're at 8:30, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll be there. Tomorrow? We'll be there.
Yeah, so please make sure you're there. We'll be talking again and building up into the game from tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you tomorrow. Come on, you Reds.